What's up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I lost money off a really big stupid purchase with Pokemon cards, and how that purchase kind of makes up for any profit I would have made. But the story's not over until I sell it. So let's just get into it. This video is inspired by Weeby ENT. He did a video a few weeks ago that I just found today that I thought was very transparent and respectful. His video was titled "How I Made $10,000 Selling Pokemon Cards in 2 weeks," and it just starts off by saying, "Hey, it was a lot of luck. I don't expect myself to repeat it," and I really respect that. He really emphasized how much luck is involved, which I think is not really emphasized enough. There's a lot of these videos that are like, "I made this much. It's so easy," and to be honest, it's just a lot of luck. Sometimes, yes, there's a lot of research involved too, but as you can see, even with the sheer amount of research I did, just like him, some things just don't always turn out right because you can't always time things properly. You don't know. No one knows how when timing changes. So I want to keep this video short because I know people don't want to sit through 30 minutes, so I'm just going to keep it to one part of my story and just get to it. First off, I know I got into this because I really enjoy Pokemon and I like collecting cards. So I wanted to kind of keep them, but I really don't want them to lose value. And if I were one day to resell them, I don't want them to be worth like half as much or a fraction of. And that was the case with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, and I ended up selling my collection after many years of holding them for like a fraction of what I purchased them for as a kid. I spent probably $500 just to estimate as a kid, which was a lot over my lifetime, purchasing these cards and trading them and collecting them. And ultimately they had to be sold for a fraction of that cost. So that really sucked. And so I was like, I hope to at least retain the value, if not, buy cards that hopefully grow in value. So I was doing a lot of research on that, and long story short, I got into the hobby again probably middle of 2020 through Gary Vaynerchuk talking a lot about how Pokemon cards are exploding. It got me into nostalgia, of course, and when I was growing up, we really couldn't afford them. My parents could only afford the energy cards, which I didn't really want, or like random commons. We could like I don't think booster packs were even accessible, at least where I was. Maybe they were, but I remember my mom finally taking me to the store, and the card collector seller was like, "Here's what you can afford," and he opened up this binder, and it was just like energy cards. So there's that whole nostalgia part that I wanted to get into. Anyhow, long story short, the purchase that was the mistake was the BGS 8.5 graded unlimited Charizard. So this is a graded card, and it's scored from 1 to 10 by a grading company on how flawless the condition is, 10 being the highest. And I think the real mistake was overextending. I set myself a budget for around $500 a month, where I was buying cards that were good, and a lot of these cards were pretty darn solid choices. I mean, I may not make money from them, but at least they would retain value, and we'll get into that some other time. But I overextended. I think that was the first mistake. I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a risk here that may pay off, and I went beyond my $500, reasonable budget limit of expendable income, and I was like, I'm going to dip into a little bit of my savings that I spent years and years saving up, and it's still not enough to cause a huge, devastating blow to me, but it's still something that I'm kind of like really pissed off about, and that was spending on that Charizard. I spent 2.5K on it, which is a lot to me. It's a lot, but not like devastating. It was like, this is definitely beyond my average expendable income, because I'm just a normal person with a normal income. but it's definitely borderline, okay, dipping into my savings. And I figured, this is a iconic card. Um, it's what around the range I can afford, and it's been going up for these few months. I think it's going to continue going up. I purchased it right at the peak, and ever since the price has dropped a lot. Now it's kind of stabilized around 1500. And in my last video when I mentioned this, someone left a comment saying, "Well, it's still a win for most of us because the prices are still much higher than they were a few months ago." And it's true for most people. Yeah, I think if for most people, unless they got the absolute wrong timing like I did, they still made money. I mean, if you bought this like 3 months ago, 5 months ago, even 2 months ago, you you would have made money if you were to resell it. I think starting in January they were around like $300, and then it started to exponentially climb until around the peak, of which was where I was around 2.5k, 2.7k, and then in the last month of late October, early November, they've dropped like a rock to around 1500, maybe 1200. And I think that at least for the foreseeable future, they'll probably stabilize around there because a lot of people, thanks to Logan Paul and Gary Vaynerchuk dropping those viral videos about the hobby, um, now they have caused a lot of people, I believe, to dig their chargers out of the basement, send them in for grading. So I think the prices will continue to stabilize around there. My plan, I mean, I've always been more long term. So, my plan initially was either short term or long term. If the prices continued to skyrocket, I would have considered reselling my Charizard to buy more cards I wanted. However, if, you know, I really enjoyed the Charizard, I would have kept it for many years. So there I am, and I'm in a situation where it's basically a long term play, um, and it's there is that potential fallacy of, oh, you're just gonna never sell it until you can sell it at break even, which may mean never, because it may never reach that point again, and that could be a fallacy. Well, if you're looking at it just from that standpoint of trying to make money, then yes, that could be the case, and that does suck. It could never reach those heights again. But even to that extent, I think maybe even with all the flood of supply that's going to come on the market one day, maybe that's 5 years from now, 3 years, 10 years from now, I do believe the prices will rise. And when you adjust for interest rate and compound interest, will it still be worth it? I don't know. I think there's a chance. So there's that. But that's not the only reason I would want to resell it or hold it. I think it's an awesome card that I have wanted to have in my collection. So, there was a part of me that wanted to hold it anyways. It still stings when I look at the price. Is there a chance that it will bounce back in the short term? Maybe, probably not. So it still stings, but it's a card that I wanted anyways. So I'm probably going to keep it. Now it is rather unfortunate. I thought it was a sure bet because it's a Charizard. So to just do a post analysis, a post mortem analysis on why it was a bad decision and what could I have done better. First off, I think a lot of people are over-biased by all these videos that say I made money. They need more videos like this where it basically says like, hey, you're not as smart as you think. A lot of it's just based on luck and the general tide of the market, and now all cards rising. And so when you see that, with as you do with many other markets, like the stock market or whatever else you're trying to buy or sell, you just think you're so smart when in reality it's just the general trend and timing which you can't control. Another part is, you get that confirmation bias. Oh, I'm winning. But for me, I got that big lesson early on, and I think, generally I still had a good choice in the general card I chose. A lot of the other cards in my collection aren't Charizard, or even base set, and that's a discussion for another day. But I was generally solid with the direction. In terms of what I missed was, I figured that the sheer volume of demand for these cards would surpass the supply and population, which it had been for many months. Even though there are thousands of my grade of Charizard on the market, the demand was clearly so much higher that the prices were spiking. But that wasn't the case. I think if I had chosen something with a much smaller population, like 100 or 200, and we can't really afford those PSA 10 first edition Charizards that have that population. So I'm more so talking about maybe a Gym Heroes PSA 10 first edition, or maybe just like a another type of card. Maybe that's a Venusaur 10 or something else, something with a lower population. Those will always be desired because they're of the highest grade in such low population, that you have a higher confidence with it, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents there. Someone did leave a comment on my previous Pokemon video saying just that, and he was like, you should have gotten only PSA 10 first edition holo cards, and that was your mistake, not looking at population. And I told him, generally you are correct, but you're assuming that me and everyone else has hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to afford those things, which is wrong. I don't know why he would even assume that. We're not all rich. So that should be obvious. But this video is getting long, so just I would say a general post-mortem analysis on this is that no one can give you this expert advice that says with 100% certainty or even 80% certainty that this card is guaranteed to succeed or go up in value or whatnot, regardless of population or so some of these other things. I think population I'm going to pay more attention to, because that just kind of heightens things. But even then, that's not guaranteed. There's cards I have that are 100 population, and they're only selling for $100 or less because they're Gym Heroes, or just something that's not as high demand. So population, demand, older, mintier, iconic cards, I use all those factors, and all of them except for maybe population apply to this Charizard, and it still was poor, done wrong. So you just never know for sure, and I think the real biggest mistake was just overextending beyond my budget because I saw the heat and I thought, it could have been done. I could have. I got a little greedy and I was like, cards are going up like crazy. I have to get in now, and I overextended on my budget. I think that was the biggest mistake. If I stayed within that like $500 a month expendable income, it would have been a different story. Like if it went down, I wouldn't have cared as much. I would have held on to that Charizard without missing a beat, and not feeling the emotional pain. So there's that. Hopefully this video was informative. I still have the card that I enjoy, so there you go.